Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of One Take. Today, I am totally thrilled to bring in Jan Weinstein. I've known Jan since she was a little baby. No, just a few years. We worked together at Food and Building. Her entire career has been in media, all sorts of media, including Procter, which I just found out I didn't know. You were the enemy. I did Colgate. And then, yeah. So today she is an executive vice president, meaning she is guilty of everything because she is an officer of the company for Publicis Healthcare. I know I went through that when I was EVP for Food and Building. We are guilty.
The throat to choke, right? Yes.
Exactly. So today she works in healthcare, again, the media, and it's a real pleasure to introduce her. She has a very interesting life. So you've done many interesting things. One of them was last month when you took the hot air balloon safari.
Yes.
But let's talk about real decisive moments. Those kind of moments that we never know until they're past, and we say, "Whoa, what did just happen?" Tell me about your decisive moment coming into the industry.
Great. No, I mean, in terms of coming into the industry, I always wanted to be in broadcast. I wanted to be a programmer at a network, and very, very hard to get a job at a network. I learned that at 21 years old that they really weren't hiring you unless you could type 60 words a minute, and that was for the women back then. Couldn't type 60 words a minute. I learned that being in the advertising media industry was as close as I was going to get, and I really fell into it through a family connection. But if we want to really talk about decisive moments, Marcelo, this was when we worked together at FCB. The reason I got the job at FCB, I had worked at Initiative prior to that, and it was kind of mid early career for me, relatively speaking, and looking at the length of it. I realized that the reason I got this job was entirely because of the relationships that I had cultivated in the industry, and a light bulb went off in my head. And I realized that my career was going to be built on relationships because who you know and how you show up and the chemistry you build with people and the relationships that you foster are going to be as important, if not more important, than what you know. I mean, the reason I'm here right now talking to you is because we've kept in touch all these years. I think it's
Right.
about 20, honestly. I think I met you probably about 20 years ago. I have clients who have become friends. I know that being a genuine person who truly does care about the people in their network is probably the most important thing that anyone, definitely myself, could do. And I can say in retrospect, every single success that I've had and every job opportunity that I've been presented with is because someone believed in me that I had known before.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that is very true. That is very true, and it has been echoed also by many other people that I truly respect in the industry. So yeah, absolutely. Now, one of the things, right? And we have been talking about this. We people of age tend to be, very resilient and all of that, but we're also we're also intelligent people. I mean, we're in media. We see things happening. I myself, like I saw broadcast television, and then I saw
Yeah.
cable, and then I saw the destruction of cable, and then I saw
Yes.
streaming. And I just negotiated a streaming deal with Hulu like maybe 6 months ago, something like that. I mean, we see it. But then there are things that we say, damn, in 1,000 years, I could have never seen that happening. I don't want to color your responses. I have my own things that
Mhm.
I've seen that I say, wow.
Yeah.
What was yours? What have you seen in the industry that you would say, never in 1,000 years?
Okay. I never would have imagined the influence that social media would have on an entire culture and the media landscape. I mean, back in the days when social media, we first started dabbling with it, I mean, we had Friendster accounts. Like, oh, what's your Friendster name or whatever it was. But due to mobility, the phone that none of us can live without, and due to the monetization of the channel, once social really started to boom as a platform, it became like an unprecedented platform for not only culture, but how to market products and services. So if you think about like all the facets of it, the influencer effect and how that can make or break pretty much anything from a political candidate to a restaurant to a brand, any brand. The scale of how traditional platforms have outpaced TV networks. Now we're talking about traditional social, like Facebook is old school social now. Think about the overnight success of a platform like Pinterest, which basically went from nobody ever hearing of it to 10 million people signing up in like a minute, right? The creator culture, which exists because of social platforms, and our ability to connect, like the ability to find people from grade school that you would never ever know exist in the world, and then them becoming influence on your life. To build on that, the rise of advocacy and the importance of advocacy around marketing. And I'm going to give credit to someone that I worked with who was at Weber Shandwick, advocacy, which is even more powerful than people advocating. That will impact everything, again, from like the restaurant down the street to a global brand like Coca-Cola. And I could not have anticipated just how massive of a cultural change and a marketing change that would have created.
Well, going into that, because you're smack into healthcare, and
Yep.
the only other industry that generates so much more misinformation is politics. Healthcare generates a huge amount of misinformation and information both. One of my ex partners, Ali, is smack into it. He is developing with a pharma company some products, actually built to combat sleep apnea,
Oh, yeah.
and which is very useful,
Oh,
I guess.
a
I
game
don't store that
changer.
much, but other people. So all of a sudden, you read things in the internet, especially in free social media, right? That has anything from the absolutely ridiculous, like what I can't even remember some of the ridiculous stuff that I've
Oh,
read
yeah.
about, like cures and oh yeah, for example, in BNI, I was a member of BNI, and this woman comes in and they sell water purifying filters, and it's fine,
Mhm.
water purify the thing, okay. She goes in the middle of the whole thing and she goes, well, purified water can cure cancer. I was thinking, like, no, it doesn't.
No.
Like, what are you talking about? My best friend died of cancer. It doesn't cure cancer. How do you use it? Because you're smack in the middle of it. I mean, you're healthcare industry. How do you use social media to counter that?
Well, what we do is, first of all, we contract with credible influencers, and we don't call them influencers. Actually, they're digital opinion leaders. They're people who have a credible reason for speaking on behalf of our clients. So could be a physician who's prescribed the product and believes in the product, sometimes uses the product as well as being a prescriber, or patient stories are really compelling because you're able to get people to widely share their experiences in a more personal and deeper way than you do on a 60-second video spot. We use it for community based efforts, ways of connecting patients with physicians who know about their specific condition and are able to treat it. Being part of communities that have vested interest in research and development of products that will at the worst, better lives, and at the best, literally save lives. So, social is a very powerful platform, but yes, the misinformation around it is also something that very much has to be considered. And, we use a lot of sort of third party verification, trust platforms in order to make sure that we show up in the right places.
So that also brings me to another point, because like my own background, yours also touches research a lot. Like, we couldn't exist in media without research, and I'm talking about real research.
Real
I'm
research.
talking about not only, let's say, a number or an audience, but also insights. What we get from the different research. Do you ever, because I've used it, do you ever use influencers the opposite? To communicate to you what is resonating with their audiences, and you see that transform some of your own communications?
Um, oh, definitely. I mean, because the influencers themselves, and again, I don't want to use that word relative to healthcare, because I want to use this more on a broader
Yeah.
scale, because healthcare and influencers doesn't really sit well with, because that's not what you're necessarily trying to do. You're trying
Mhm.
to support, help, versus influence per se. But influencers have a following because of who they are and what their followers believe in. And I think it's very analogous to the way I used to talk to magazine publishers, Marcelo, and say, your reader better than I do, but I know my product. How do we
Right.
take the two things and find that sweet spot so that your people want to hear what we have to say? And how is it going to best resonate? And sometimes it's giving that opinion leader the freedom to be able to talk honestly and authentically, because that's something that definitely layers on top of, and sometimes even is the foundation of the most successful marketing that we can have.
Yeah, I truly agree with it. I mean, like, you see it as a two-way street, because, like, let's not call them influencers, but like opinion leaders or
Mhm.
gatekeepers or whatever you want to call them. But people, with a following, they're also a two-way street for us. We understand what is relevant to people. I have a big problem normally with just being authentic. You could be an authentic jerk, and
Yeah.
and
Oh,
yet
yeah.
there you are. You're authentic, right? So I like relevancy. I think the number one thing is a product needs to be relevant to you and to your life, and solve your problem. And maybe your problem doesn't have to be a physical problem. It could be a mental problem. It could give
True.
you some pleasure, like Spotify.
Right.
Spotify for me solves two problems. One, it gives me pleasure. I have my own playlist, they're great. But solves another problem, which is, how do I keep in the forefront of music? How do I keep exposed to new music without having to invest in CDs and all that? So Spotify, for example, is one of those things that is very relevant to
I'm
me.
laughing, Marcelo, because last night Spotify literally helped me fall asleep. I found a sleep playlist, and when I woke up this morning, it was still playing, which means that worked.
Oh my God, yeah. I use it the opposite.
Yeah.
I I I have I'm very open to confessing I don't like jazz, for example. I
Okay.
really don't. I like what I like, and it tends to be heavy metal, rock, hard rock, punk. I love punk, that kind of thing. But you need to push yourself every so often. And one of the things I do is I purposely listen to music that I would never listen, mainly
It's great.
because it's free and there are
Yes.
playlists. So I might, have a playlist of, rap. So I like hip hop, but I don't like rap. I don't like reggaeton, but I like house. So
Yeah.
all of these things need to be relevant, and the influencers or the opinion leaders, I think, do a valuable, really valuable work in showing us what is relevant. So in that sense, they're like modern research tools.
Yeah, I love what you're saying about using these platforms to experiment out of your own comfort zone, because one of the biggest problems with the way content is curated now is that we all tend to be speaking to the converted. We're getting served based on what we like or what we've shown that we like. And particularly when it comes to healthcare, people get diagnosed with things that they never knew that they could have possibly had, like every day. And if you're only speaking to people who have already been in the market, you're missing this opportunity to get in front of people who may need you someday. So I think there's this really interesting balance of like getting what you like and getting what you know and opening up your world to a lot more broader things that you may find out in some cases you like and in other cases you need, because we all have this like selective perception too.
Yeah,
You
correct.
can see, I've talked to people about the fact that you could see hundreds of ads for psoriasis, and you see hundreds, thousands of ads for psoriasis, but all of a sudden you or someone in your family gets diagnosed with psoriasis, those ads are going to be incredibly relevant. And where you may have looked at them as white noise or let me skip over that, now all of a sudden it's really important to you.
Yep. Oh yeah. No. When I launched my first set of diapers, Curity for Colgate, that was the number one conversation with. I think her name was Rosa Maria Castañeda. She was great. She was the brand manager for Curity, and they wanted a heavy up, like every other product has a heavy up, to launch it. And I told her, listen, nobody is aware of diapers until the woman gets pregnant. At that moment, you are aware of diapers, but before,
Right.
it's just white noise. Nobody cares.
Right.
So let's launch it like in 4 really big flights of 6 weeks, because mathematically, you will not get pregnant within more than 2 weeks from our flights. So it will be relevant to you.
Yeah.
But that is very true. At that moment, the ad really becomes relevant, and then you actually listen to it. One of the things, and I think um, it might have been Erwin Ephraim who did the whole theory on recency in media, and it was exactly that. You have to be present all of the time because you never know when that person is going to need that specific product, whether it's Coca-Cola or McDonald's or a Buick. I don't know. And so yeah, I apply that daily to any media that I'm doing. You have to be there when it's relevant. So no, it's great, and it's also great to talk to a media person. Finally,
Yeah. Always.
always. I mean, once you're a media person, you're a media person.
That's
We
right.
tend
You
to think in terms of
you
media.
watch content differently. I mean, I said everything that I do in my own life as a consumer of cultural content, I do through the lens of my job.
Yeah, I so that has gotten me into problems because my other aspect is, of course, I love photography. I've been taking pictures since I was 14. So, and I was a professional at 20 for a rock and roll magazine. So every so often, I find myself just looking at somebody, and the person reacts really badly. And all I'm thinking about is that light is not very good, or I would change the light to this, or I would maybe backlight doing. But I'm thinking photography, right? And the
I
person
asked
thinks,
you about my light when we start when we started, but right
yeah.
before we started, I'll just tell everybody. I said to Marcelo, I don't think my light is very good.
Well, I'm looking at my color balance and I'm hating it, but like it is what it is. So I think in terms of color balance all the time. But you're very right. When we've been doing the same thing, or like in the same industry, let's say for 40 years, we tend to look at it from that lens, which is great. So and I make no apologies for it, and you shouldn't make it either. I mean, like, we're real pros.
Oh no, and I have another facet too because I tell people all the time, I am not a doctor, but I play one at work. So I'm the person that everybody goes to when they have any problem. Look at this rash or what's happening. There have been a couple of times where someone at work actually, it's not really funny, but said to me, do you know my face is paralyzed? Like, I don't know what's going on. I said, I think you might have Bell's palsy. It's not permanent, but I think you need to get to the doctor. And sure enough, I my diagnosis was spot on.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty heavy. So anyway, just to kind of finish it off, and you're a great example because you're still working. Some people say I still work, but I am not working. I'm just having fun, and like
A little of both, I'd say, for me. A little of
yeah,
both.
all of this work thing. Like what is this work? But what one of the things, and I'm gonna make this into like a real article one of these days. I'm still collecting a lot of information, but let's say you're facing a CEO, a CMO, considering, several candidates. What is your advice for somebody at the CEO level about, people of a certain age, or like Irving says, POA, people of age?
People of age. Well, first I'd say hire them, hire us, right?
Exactly.
The two words that I would probably say to a CEO or CMO is work ethic. We grew up in an industry and a profession where we took pride in working hard to get the job done. It was all about getting the job done. And if you had to work long hours to do it, you did it. Someone of the certain age, person of age, they're not going to be resistant to checking emails or checking their phone in off hours because we have the capability to better balance our lives and our work because of the mobility, the technology. It's a gift. Some people see it as a curse. I see it very much as a way to balance life. The other piece of advice that I would give is that consider the most important thing that any company has to consider is return on investment. And when you get someone of a certain age with loads of experience and they've seen it all, we've seen it all, we know how to handle situations calmly, thoughtfully, not necessarily reactively without you are not going to necessarily have to pay two, three, four times the money for someone with two, three, four times the experience. A lot of people of a certain age want to continue to contribute. They want to continue to, you know, learn and teach on an ongoing basis. And have the conversation. Don't make assumptions that because you're experienced, you're going to be ridiculously expensive, because I will guarantee you that the ROI on a person with experience is going to be very favorable.
I totally agree. Totally agree. And I wish more CEOs and CMOs who look at it your way as a very, very ROI oriented hire, because we have all this knowledge.
Yep. And we understand how to measure ROI. So there's that too.
There's that too. Yes, we actually know that. And attribution. I like attribution. So anyway, Jan, thank you very much. By the way, best of luck to your two sons.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes, I was rooting for them. So and thank you very much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure connecting in person, well, virtually in person,
Well,
after all these
Marcelo, I
years.
am going to be spending some time in Florida next year, so I hope to see you in person.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'll be here at least part of the time. So fantastic. So thank you very much again. We'll still be in touch and
Okay, thank
keep
you for
working.
having me, and I appreciate this opportunity. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.